If you have been building your own website and putting content out there that you control, aside from just the socials, you're actually training the data set that will be used to present results. James Schramko here. Welcome back to my podcast, and this is episode 1098. Today, we're going to be talking about AI because it's undeniable. Brought along Gert Mellak from platformleverage.com. G'day, Gert. How you going?
Hey, James. Thanks for having me again.
Is that the name of the new website?
Yes, that's right. We have developed a new program that's more in line with where things are going, at least what I believe. And platformleverage.com is the home of this new program.
Platform's an interesting choice. I remember we had some discussion around that, but I only really understood it deeply this week. And maybe if I just sort of start off, we're really having a conversation today about use cases for where things are going with AI. I'm going to say, let's go back, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when I started online, SEO was like the thing. It was so important, and I could rank anything. 10 years ago, pretty much the same. 5 years ago, there was definitely a lot more migration towards social media and building on other platforms. And I kept talking about own the race course. Some people did, some people didn't, and that's fine. And it's tempting in recent years to think, oh, AI is sort of taking over. We're seeing lately, I think as recently as this week, GPT putting search into their thing. I mean, at some point they were able to start looking up websites a few months ago, and now they've got search built in. In the meantime, though, there's other platforms out there that are doing some different things that I want to talk about in a moment as well. But it would be tempting recently to think, forget about SEO, forget about Google. There's no point anymore because over at Google, they've scraped everything they can and they're just showing you the results without you even having to click on anything. So that was a huge change. They just want the money for the ads. That's been the driver for them. And maybe I just put all my efforts into, the platforms, social platforms, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, all that, and not worry about my website. And so I imagine you might have even seen clients starting to wean down their spend on Google SEO. Fine, you could see that might be a trend. And then I discovered tools like Perplexity. It is an incredible research tool. And when I go searching on Perplexity during the week for something, a really amazing thing happened. I was looking up some information about somebody because I'm helping them with a project. They're a partner of mine and I wanted to help them out. And what I found was there wasn't a whole lot of information or citations available other than what was on my website. And that made me sit back thinking, hang on a minute. Why is my website being cited here as an authority on this person? And they were a guest on my show. And then I thought, why isn't their website getting cited? And I asked them, like, what's the deal with your website? And they're like, I don't have a website. And I'm like, okay, well, that makes sense. So these tools are picking up what they can from where they can. And it was at that moment I'm like, oh, I get it. If you have been building your own website and putting content out there that you control, aside from just the socials, you're actually training the data set that will be used to present results. And then I went a little bit deeper because my experiments with AI in the last week or two have been load training source data, load frameworks, get outputs. And I'm like, okay, the whole tool on a macro level, its training set by default is what it can pick up from the websites. And so in Perplexity, you can click on these extra menus, and that's where it's fascinating. I of course, did what everyone did 15 years ago, and like Googling yourself. I perplexity'd myself. And I said, what do you know about James Schramko? And boy, did it know all about me. Tells me about me. And then it's got prompts underneath it. Who does James Schramko help? What are his price points? What results has he gotten for clients? And then it actually presents testimonials, because we actually have one of the pages on my website is hundreds of testimonials, and it's just all in there. I'm like, what an amazing aha moment. In short, what I'm saying in a long format is if you didn't give up on SEO for Google, you'll probably find that the AI tools are seeded with the content, and some of the people out there who stopped doing SEO may not be seeded to the same extent. That's my anecdotal discovery. Yet I know that was a bit of a long intro to the show, but I think it sets us up for this discussion because it explains why you have now put a focus on the domain that focuses on platform rather than what we used to traditionally think of SEO as being ranking on Google. Your thoughts?
Absolutely. I think this was a great introduction and it really frames what we are seeing these days. I first came across this when ChatGPT came out. I did a lot of research because I immediately thought this was a reputation issue. So brands are going to have a reputational issue. Why? Because it just seemed to be picking up, like you say, anything it finds on the web that it can actually crawl, and it even crawled things it was afterwards then denied to crawl. So there is information in there that might now be blocked to access it for it, but it's actually everything that's on the web essentially is fair game for an AI to process and use as material to generate an answer or generate information. So this is this old input equals output game. I can't control the output. I don't have as much control as I have with SEO on rankings, where we can control rankings to a certain degree. Here, the only thing we can control is the input. And we can't exactly control if a particular article gets in, but we can control how consistent we connect a particular concept, a particular product, a particular brand to near semantically connected topics. So in your case, you're very strongly connected to revenue share. You're very strongly connected to coaching, to mentoring, to these kinds of topics, to obviously your prior brand Superfast business as well. And algorithms have been picking this up. This is on the one
And
hand,
also the surf brand has it's gone up significantly, and we're still one of the few sites that continues to publish to the website. It's like everyone else is just doing Instagram or YouTube, which we do, of course, or social sites. They generally in that market don't invest in the website component. And it seemed a little old school a week or two ago, but now it's come back with a vengeance and the traffic's increased a lot too.
yeah, I think we definitely see that you should be on multiple platforms, and this is really the ultimate goal here. But we also know it can be overwhelming. And this is where we really have developed a process where we tune the intensity, the frequency, etc., based on the importance of a platform for a particular business. And we might be talking about this a little bit later as well. But really, right now, the general rule, like you say, a website is just essential. If somebody has a product or a business still without a website is always going to be the ultimate resource that is trusted by algorithms and engines. So if you have a website, you want to make sure that you're very clear about the information about your brand in simple sentences, explain what you do, who you help, how you do this, and make sure that you can link to this particular website from all your profiles on the web. So there are just all those connections, and say, hey, this is the home of your brand, and this is what engines then pick up. And this is why the website, for example, for your partner is so essential, because then there would finally be like one source of truth, so to speak, that tells us this is actually what's the most important information here.
Is it as simple as saying, well, if you publish information to your website, you're assisting the training data that is going to be fed to these tools to end up in the results that they produce?
It's a good start, but we need to see that the tools have to be suspicious of information they come across. So I could talk tomorrow on platformleverage.com about cancer treatment and have no idea about cancer treatment. And I would really wish that the engines wouldn't trust me on my advice there, because it would probably come from a TPD anyway. So they are going to try to contrast the information they find on your website with what's out there on the web, which raises a really big issue we tackle with a lot of clients when they start looking into this, is a lack of consistency. Because we all feel on different platforms we need to present ourselves in different ways. So on LinkedIn, I might be an expert consultant. On Instagram, I'm a lifestyle designer. On Pinterest, I'm a DIY artist or whatever. And there is another on Behance, I'm a designer, a graphic designer. For engines, these are different people that happen to have the same name. And this raises a big issue because tomorrow, if I have an issue where I need a consultant, your name is not going to be dropped because the engine might think you're probably more a designer or a coach than a consultant. So you're not even there because the connections are so inconsistent. So we
So
want
one
to
way
have
I think we're solving that is we start with the core document. And this is cute. The other day I saw someone on Threads sharing this amazing um, content multiplication system where you take one core piece of content and then strip it down into 10 things and distribute it over different platform. Like, man, we were talking about that over a decade ago. It's like, but they really were sharing it as if they just invented it. But I think when we take a core piece of content and then we do reformat that for different platforms, it's all coming from the same core piece. So it's going to have a very consistent message. It's like taking a separate tentacle from the same octopus. They all lead back to the same octopus's mouth, right? I used to call this the octopus method at least 12 years ago. And that's where you disseminate your content across those different platforms. But the head of the octopus, the mouth, so to speak, was like the opt-in form or the sales page.
exactly. And there are like two things to this probably. One is the profile that absolutely needs to be consistent and very, very tightly defined. So every profile page you have, be it your Instagram, be it your LinkedIn, this must make sense and easily be identifiable as the same person. And then definitely in the publications, if you start talking about everything, it's trend. And tomorrow you talk about your vacation, and the day afterwards you talk about the new car, and then you talk about business a little bit, and then about your kids, etc. I think it's really, really hard for engines to figure this out. They are going to try to tie certain publications to certain areas of your life. We all have very, very diverse lives, I would say, but it's making it really, really hard.
What would you say to someone's they're thinking about the beginning of next year, for example, and they're
Mhm.
thinking, okay, we need to allocate some resource to some kind of SEO. A few years ago, it'd be simple. Or let's just rank on Google. Now, would we say, are we still trying to rank on Google, or are we trying to have a campaign where we're feeding AI machines, or what?
Three steps I think are really, really important to see. First of all, AI or generative AI answers on search engines largely depend on what the search engine would rank. So, in order to come up in an AI overview on top, the chances you really want to rank high on page one organically as well, because the chances are higher. Google has been refining the algorithm for 26 years or so. So they have a really good idea what they want to rank for whatever reason. Not always clear to us, but they have
It's
their
kind of
reason.
like the kid at school looking across at the other kid's answer. Are they thinking, well, what does Google think ranks well? Because we'll give that a bit of weight.
Possibly, possibly. But the other thing is that ChatGPT, for example, with their search engine seems to largely depend on Bing, for example. So something 2 years ago wasn't even on the map is now coming
It's
back.
almost
We have
it's
we check cross check rankings on Bing. Very often they are similar, but sometimes they are very different. And we need to factor in Bing right now just as an additional source for ChatGPT. And then let's also think about all the generative AI tools that sit on top of OpenAI. They are going to depend on what OpenAI believes should be mentioned in a certain context, text that should be generated in a certain context. Think of all the AI tools where you can just select Claude or ChatGPT or whatever. We really want to make sure we rank well on Bing these days. And we also want to really control other platforms and say, where are my clients actually hanging out? And this is a thing where it's then very specific to a particular project. The way we do this with the platform leverage program is really start with an audience platform research and say, hey, where's your audience located? We research this and say, okay, on which platforms do they hang out? How important would we rank those platforms? And then say, hey, there might be 20 platforms. It doesn't mean you need to work 20 platforms like you might right now, your Instagram or your YouTube with the same intensity, but you want to make sure that your brand pops up regularly in the right context there. And this is where then the process really controls what needs to be done when.
It does make me smile when you say Bing. I can't believe that's in a conversation in 2024 because I thought Google had a 90+% market share last year of search. How does Bing even enter how does it even get an invite to this? Is it because of the investment into OpenAI by Microsoft?
I mean, Bing has been always there. There were certain demographics, especially in the states, all the demographics that use Bing because it's just what's predefined on certain computers, and they just go with it. And they might use a Microsoft Edge or browser or whatever, and it's just what's there, or certain phone deals they have, etc. But definitely, I think what's really has brought them back on the map is their investment with OpenAI, and they're just like the second big company I think that right now has potential to grow. So we are not going to see Bing's market share go up, I guess. We just see ChatGPT's market share go up. And we know ChatGPT is just largely dependent on Bing search.
How do you test to see where someone is at the moment? Do you have to manually go and search? Because I imagine with Google, there's all sorts of ranking tools and software at this mature stage of the market. Is it more manual to go and look up AI? And also, does it personalize results for different users on geolocation or their search behavior like Google most likely does?
Definitely can happen, especially for searches that are locally relevant. So if you type in pizza Sydney and I type in pizza Sydney and we're located different places, probably we get different results. I would guess so. So there is some personalization, but those we have tools to do this. We don't do this manually, and we also have an internal tool right now that we are testing where we actually track brand mentions on ChatGPT for our clients and their competitors, so they know how often do they come up in certain queries, how often do competitors come up, because it's not as clear cut as search rankings anymore. So this is on that end, but definitely we had actually to get back to a more powerful rank tracking because Bing got bigger. Because the main tools you might be using are usually checking Google, but you really want to make sure that you have an idea where you are on Bing and also always have the competitive benchmark. Not be ranking well, but where are your competitors? Are they doing something better? Can we look at what they are doing, where the gaps are, as usual, and see if we can fine tune something? Most things are good for Google and Bing, but Bing has a few peculiar things they sometimes pay more attention to, but this is really on a case by case basis then to figure out.
Like what?
This really, like I said, this is really depends on the individual niches. I know domain age, for example, played a bigger role for a while, so Bing would focus more on that. It seems very often in these criteria we feel like Bing is a little bit more tied to keywords than rather than concepts and topics. It really depends, right? But it's like as if it was like a little bit of an outdated search engine, Google a little bit ahead with their criteria. This is what we feel. We can't prove it, and Bing is a little bit behind. But at the same time, you're not going to optimize something only for Bing with the market share Google still has. But sometimes they're saying, hey, if I had to choose, and now Bing is more important, I have to choose between two domains, and one was registered 20 years ago, and one was registered 5 years ago. Maybe the 20-year old domain has a little bit more weight because Bing might get stronger through ChatGPT.
And how does this compare to other platforms? Like, for example, I'm not on TikTok. I wonder if that's a penalty for me. I'm not doing Reddit at this point, but I have heard you mention that before. I definitely do Facebook and YouTube, X, LinkedIn. And when I say me, I mean me and my small team. Um, and we're trying to do a higher quality of content on the platforms that we know are important for us. We don't do Pinterest, for example. So, not on Pinterest, TikTok, or Reddit. Am on some of the other main core platforms. Is that enough?
In my point of view, no. So I would really look at, especially for 2025, to future pace this a little bit and imagine platforms are going, or engines, AI engines are going to look at information at a variety of platforms. So imagine you're on 3 platforms, another one is on 18 platforms, right? What is the brand going to think about popularity? What is the brand going? How much context does the brand have about you? It's just going to be drastically different. Whenever I say 18 platforms, people are like, "No, this is impossible." And there was always this advice: focus on one platform, go really deep, and own this platform almost for your brand. And I think it wasn't bad advice in the past. I think right now I would reconsider. I would have my main platform. I still try to dominate and get my thousands of subscribers or more. But I would make sure that I have like a foot in the door on a lot of different platforms. You mentioned Reddit, for example. Reddit has a partnership, $1 million partnership with Google. Google giving them visibility apparently in exchange for using their data as training data. And you are going to see, and many people of my clients have reported they noticed that Reddit threads are actually surfacing on Google much more than before. So you search for advice and you might see 3 Reddit threads come up on page one because they just occupy so much space. There's no way that you're going to outrank a Reddit thread with a blog post. However, you can go in, participate with your branded account in this conversation, and you're just part of it. You just use other people's real estate in order to bring your brand forward. So this is really how we, I think, need to think about it more and more. This used to be an actual SEO strategy, a parasite SEO, where you say, hey, there's other platform has a lot of visibility. We create some content there. We are going to get visibility faster through medium.com or other platforms, for example, than with a new domain. And it still works at times. But right now, just need to embrace the fact that there are platforms that get a certain amount of visibility or importance from AI tools, and we need to be there. So Reddit is definitely one of the main ones. Quora is another one we see very often. But really, when we do this research, we come up with the top 20 and really rank them. And it might be enough to log into Reddit twice a month and answer a few queries for now and make sure that you're part of this. And there might be other platforms that are so important that people have completely ignored that they should actually be doing every week because their competitors are always visible there and engines have no idea that they even have a profile.
Wow. And your own website would be somewhere in that list?
Definitely, your own website is like the host. This needs to be having the most important information anyway. So this is everything. But really, what I also see is people then sometimes go a little bit crazy and publish everything they would publish on all social media platforms also on their website. What we really then go in is very often do a cleanup and say, hey, let's really strip everything off that's not related or closely related to your core business. So whatever you produce that's related to your core business, a YouTube video that you can relate, etc., definitely by all means keep it on your website and keep it there as a potential entry point. But not everything that you tweet needs to be on your website. For example, very often you might be tweeting opinions or even political views these days or whatever,
I
where you
hope
say,
not.
hey, this is not something you want to relate to your brand too much. And sometimes it is even better to have like a separate account for these kinds of things.
Well, I know I've just approved an article for our surf site, which is a transcript of the YouTube video. It's not a strict transcript though; it's a show notes sort of review style thing with individual words and SEO named images. But we know that we had a very strong result with the video itself, with 41,500 views on one, and then the next one got a whole bunch of views as well. So we know that people are interested in it. I like what you said about the 1,000 fans. Some people think you're a failure if you don't have 1 million followers or subscribers. But what I think I'm hearing you say is if you could go out and get 1,000 true fans or subscribers on 10 different platforms, that would probably be better than just having 10,000 subscribers for one Facebook page.
I would expect so. And it's ultimately also something that whenever I explain it to somebody on a call, they really get it. Marketing ultimately is the right message at the right time to the right audience on the right channel. The right channel is not Google because we say so. The right channel can be a Facebook group. The right channel can be a Slack community. The right channel can be a Discord or whatever.
Do you see a point where Google won't be the place to go to? And I say that knowing for me, my Google searches have declined and my use of other tools has increased, but I know I'm usually a little bit ahead of the average person in the population in how they use it. I mean, a friend of mine asked me yesterday if I'd heard of this Chat GPT, and so he's literally years behind. And one thing that really sticks out for me, and it was when they did that Claude demo during the week of the computer taking over the browser. And then I saw a privacy report. There was a Choice magazine report about vehicles and how much surveillance they're doing and selling audio conversations that you are having in your car, to they're selling that data to train AI models. It made me think, why are we still using keyboards? When we stop the keyboard, same as these driverless cars that are popping up in some places, and certainly self-driving cars, I think when we can ditch the keyboard, I feel like that's when Google will be most under threat. But maybe that's flawed thinking. I'm not sure. What do you think about that?
I think Google is definitely going to not give up easily. I see like a big potential to really make a big step forward or see a shift in market shares when tools like Alexa are going to start answering like ChatGPT or Perplexity does. And really, you can actually have a decent conversation with those tools because many households have them integrated. Many people have them installed as an app. We're going to see a big shift when Apple really launches worldwide their AI version. In Europe, apparently a little bit different than in the States, but we're going to see what this means. And I would see a future where we essentially, once the privacy related things are cleared, we definitely all have our kind of trained agents. They just participate in our lives. So I don't have to tell this agent that I'm going on vacation in summer because it already knows it. So when I ask for the places I can go in August, they will say, yeah, probably you're in Austria in August. So this could be a good idea to see Vienna because there is such and such concert you might be interested in.
It already knows this. You get in the car to drive somewhere, it tells you how long you're going to take to get to your destination that you didn't tell it you're going to, but it knows because you do it exactly the same time every single week. And now in your emails, it starts prompting you with the answer that you just click the button. And so I can see we're going to cross over between where we're telling the tool what to do to the point where it might be guiding us.
I think this was always the idea from Google to actually you just open up the page and it just tells you what you need to know, which is the dangerous route. But it's actually heading there where I say, hey, I know that you're going to be leaving for the airport right now, leave now. Um, or based
That's
on your
like when you
email.
go to the airport and you get an SMS on your phone saying roaming, activate your SIM, that sort of stuff. And the bank's like, hey, when you pull up somewhere else, would you like to let us know you're overseas right now? Like, it already knows, but it's like, yeah, sure.
I mean, the amount of information that's out there is really crazy. But I mean, back to your original question, I would believe Google is going to defend as much as they can their position with acquisitions or whatever is necessary in order to be like the number one here. But I believe users are going to go very diverse. There's just going to be so many specialized engines. Like now, many people start at Amazon. They don't start at Google to search for a product. Many people go to YouTube to search for a video. They don't start on Google. We already have this right now. We just need to also see that it might be Perplexity because I like Perplexity more and I have a shortcut on my computer, or Perplexity might make a deal with Apple to be like the predominant search engine. And then again, it's going to shift. So I think we are going to see those partnerships happen where we just say, okay, this engine is integrated there, this engine is integrated there, and one has a deal with iPhones and one with Android, and things like those are going to shift how we search, and we're just going to get used to a different kind of result as well. I've been using ChatGPT search engine since it came out as the predominant search engine on my browser. You get used to things like these very quickly, and you also start searching differently than you would on Google. You start searching with complete phrases or sentences or
Well, that's
something
true.
like
I mean, I used it sparingly. I used it a bit, went off it for a while, used it a lot more lately. Since I started training the GPTs, I used it so much I actually ran out of memory, and then I blew through threads. I'm running out of chat threads now, so I'm going to have to install something with a token. But then when I tried some of the other tools, like the first time I used Perplexity, I'm like, this is great. And I installed the icon on the homepage of my phone. On the homepage of my phone, I've got Perplexity, Notebook LM, and ChatGPT. Those three there are the tool sets that I've really been diving into. They're doing the same thing the other platforms do. When one of them has a feature that's good, the other one copies it. Perplexity's got that Google Notebook LM sort of feature underneath it. I think I saw somewhere Facebook's going to have a version of a Notebook LM that has the podcasting feature, this podcast summary feature, which was a really great innovation. Remember a few episodes back, we did the podcast where I used that Notebook LM audio. A funny thing happened where I posted about it on Facebook. One of the commenters said, "Well, I can no longer trust you. I don't know if this is AI or not." I said, "Well, it's not. I mean, I called it a test. I told you what I'm doing. Not like I tried to trick anybody." And I'm answering this post here, but then how do I know you're not a robot? They said, and I said, "Oh, I guess you probably can't know that I'm not a robot, but I'm not." Like I'm telling you that I'm still human powered in terms of comments, and I plan to do my podcast myself. I guess they could look up YouTube and decide if it's a deep fake video or not. And I'm imagine we're only a year away from consumers having access to that. I mean, it's already there. That Tom Cruise actor guy and stuff. Like you can already do deep fake videos, but that's not what I want to do, right? And there are just some people out there who are different and want to do that stuff, and that's fine. But I'm not that guy. So yeah, I think what I'm saying is I can adapt my user behavior quite quickly if a tool blows me away with something clever. But then I think they're very quick to copy it. So I guess having waited so long until I go deep into it, because I don't want to waste all my time on tools that were there at the very beginning. Remember those tools like Jarvis that became Jasper, that is probably still there, but I imagine is nowhere near as popular or well subscribed to. I might be wrong, but I mean, it's been blown out of the water. Like anyone with a $20 GPT account can create whatever they want. Then the big companies come, like Google's going to release a version of Gemini with their own Jarvis. So I imagine they had to pay someone for the rights, or they don't care about being approached for that. But I do think there'll be some master tools that will copy all the good features and get the user base that become the dominant players. And I'm guessing you'd have to look at companies like Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Apple, and maybe the one that does Claude is getting some pretty good traction as well. But I mean, there won't be room for another 10 or 15 tools, will there?
I guess there will be specialized tools. So if you're in a legal space, there's going to be a legal GPT kind of thing that's just has all the laws in there, trained on all countries or whatever, and is trained on actually approved documents or has an approval process in the back or something like this. So I think the legal industry is going to really see a big impact here in the next months
Well, I
and
saw
one or
one
two
in the
years.
speech pathology industry. I imagine there'll be industry specific tools. There'll be a whole industry of people who are good at training the tools and selling people into the tools and servicing the tools. And I guess there'll be a category of the top one, two, or three for each segment. So it is a gold rush. I honestly think this is as big as the internet was that we're going through, which is why I imagine it's enormously disruptive for someone who a year or two ago was just ticking along fine, doing Google reviews and Google reports and link building and on-page content and stuff. And that's really what I want to focus on here. The state of flux. Is your mission clear at the moment? And are you able to help brief people on what they should be doing to navigate these choppy waters?
There's probably a few approaches here. There is one approach, and actually, it was you telling me this on one of our calls. I remember where you said when a lot of things change, focus on what's not changing, and it's
It's
something
a Jeff Bezos philosophy.
I credit
It's
you
worked
all the
pretty well for
I
Amazon.
credit you all the time. But it's the interesting part is, I mean, I've been doing SEO now for more than 20 years. There are still things that haven't changed, right? Everybody tries to sell you on this is changing so fast, and you need to always be there are still things I do exactly in the same way as 20 years ago because they just still work. So SEO in part is still the same. The results change, what Google wants to see changes, but the tactics are the same. The methodologies, the SOPs we created years ago are largely the same. We obviously adapt them. We now have more tools. We have AI. We have custom GPTs for every client that helps us really find the best solution or best content or best title for this particular client and things like those. We obviously enhance them. But there are things that don't change in SEO and that will always make sense. And especially now where it's really the engines that need to have a full understanding about your brand and what you can and can't do. it's more important than ever.
It kind of sits with what we've been doing as a team. I noticed my team were naming images with a very accurate description of what the image was, and that comes from our knowledge of SEO. I noticed when we do an Instagram post, we carefully name the models of the surfboards that we're posting about. We're writing words in a really easy to comprehend way that's easy to understand, useful for the reader, removes ambiguity, is well structured. We aim for unique content that's never been published before, not copy paste, but bespoke tailoring of stuff. We try to keep really close to the core topic and theme. Ever since you came and told me to delete all those website posts, which was I've overcome the shock now, but it was such a lesson. Less but better. Be very, very clear. Be intentional about everything you publish. Make it user friendly, usable. Put descriptions. Like even, for example, with Instagram, apparently they're reading something into the descriptions under the images, not just hashtags. And so we're quite careful to name images when we upload them. I noticed the team are naming the YouTube video that they upload to YouTube on the description of what that video is about, rather than just MPG 1746 or whatever. And I think that's nice best practice to have, whatever platform you're using.
I think make information as clear as possible. I just published on Search Engine Land an article about how to write YouTube descriptions. And even though YouTube doesn't allow other engines technically to crawl their videos, at some point, I think OpenAI got in before they actually blocked this or so. They have like in their terms, other engines can't automatically process this. Ultimately, I would expect that nobody's going to ignore such a big foundation of content and videos. So I always advise everybody to have a very clear description below every video. What is this video? Is this video about? Very clear, simple language, easy to understand, easy to consume, because then it's also easy to process for an engine. And you can also use those videos to bring the consistent information about your brand across in in simple terms that you would have on your profile, for example. So wherever you are, those best practices you mentioned absolutely still make sense. But where I think we need to like do another step now is to actually really look at the platforms. Where else is my audience? Because Google and other engines probably know that a large portion of my audience is using Facebook groups, or a large portion of my audience is on Reddit. Now what we do is we extract like the last 500 Facebook groups, Facebook posts from a few groups that are interesting for you, for your audience, and analyze them. We mine this data, we come up with topics, we find their pain points, and the pain points now and 6 months ago are not the same. So we try to really go deep into those platforms and then line up a strategy where we say, hey, log into these 3 Facebook groups twice a week, find posts that are related to such and such that you are related to, and answer those questions. And we train our clients to what kind of terminology to use. So it's not just a 2-word answer, but really make a context rich answer there. And it's only if Facebook groups are actually important for a particular brand. But we really want to know what are they talking about on a particular channel and make sure that the brand actually goes in there.
To your point about platforms saying you're not allowed to do this or that, you just cruise in and suck out 500 posts. Like every platform says
We
what you
have a
can't
person
do.
manually copying and pasting.
But every platform has what you can't do, and every platform there is a grey market of tool sellers who do things that the platform probably doesn't want you to do, but they can do. And it doesn't mean that it's naughty or bad. It just means that they're never going to condone it. I saw a tool the other day that you load up all the channels you're interested in YouTube, and it starts sifting and sorting by whatever filters you use to find the best performing videos by certain ratios that you can then see, well, these are the themes that people are succeeding with in my market. There are tools for LinkedIn. There are tools for Facebook, for groups. So it's actually one of the core reasons I suggest people put their membership on a private platform is it's much harder for people to just go and suck out the entire contents of your audience and content by pushing a tool. So that's very interesting. So in summary, we want to find out where our customers are participating. We want to have a presence there. if there's multiple places, it's worth going to multiple places. And we want to have best practice, whatever platform we're using. And if we do things that would work well on Google for SEO, then there's a good chance they'll be close to working on some of the other platforms anyway. And there's also a possibility that publishing to your own website and some of the core websites that are obvious will end up seeding these AI tools and hopefully producing your name or term or business back in the results as an authority, which in the long term could be quite useful.
Absolutely. I think this is a great summary. I would just really encourage everybody to actually go deeper into this than before, because although Google still has their 90% market share, I believe in 6 months this can change very, very quickly once certain platforms we use every day start reacting a little bit differently, which is in their best interest. We're going to see a big shift. So the better you can tie your brand right now to your audience and to your topics, the better.
I feel like this will be the episode that I call back to in the future, where I was talking about us not needing keyboards. I still think it's the dumbest thing ever. As soon as I can get past two finger typing, I'm going to be wildly performance based, right? Like if you ever observe a kid operating with a voice controlled machine, they are so superior in how they know how to navigate it. They don't need that. So I believe we're really close to where that shift will happen. And that's where I think the tools that serve the audience the best will win, whoever's behind those. And then they'll have to do deals to buy data and do all the other cool stuff. Yet you seem to like your data analysis and advising people on what the next steps are. If they wanted to reach out to you, how do we do that?
I think if this episode resonates, really the best place is go over to platformleverage.com, take a look at how we structure this program. And if this resonates, definitely hit the button to get in touch with me. And we just make sure that this is really a fit and check out what the next steps would be.
I love that, Gert. You've always been so helpful to me. You've been a tremendous partner, helping out a lot of my clients, and I've enjoyed watching your journey from the beginning when you were a member of my community and helping out clients. They kept coming back to me saying, "This guy's really good," and you're still good, and you're still getting published in those journals on the official SEO sites, which I imagine is no mean feat, right? Just to get yourself in there, you have to be well respected and regarded. So well done.
Thank you so much.
We'll pop this episode up there, episode 1098 on jamesschramko.com. It's also on Spotify, Apple. Hey, if you enjoyed this episode, it'd be good if you could leave a review just to let me know you're out there. If you ever want to get in touch with me, just reply to any of the emails that I send if you're getting the subscription updates. Be sure to put your email address at my website and we'll send you a little alert when there's a new episode. Thank you.
This is James Schramko.